What's in your retirement portfolio? That's the question I keep getting ever since I retired last year. So today, for the first time, I'm opening my retirement portfolio. I'll show you every single piece from the safest bonds to the riskiest bets. And then we'll test the big question. If I were 59 and a half today with just this retirement account, could I actually retire living only on dividends? Stay with me until the end because the answer might surprise you. Let's start with the smallest piece, cash. This is about $9,500. Now, this is not my emergency fund. My real safety net is outside this account, around $65,000 in high yield savings account and money market brokerage fund. This cash is just sitting here on the sideline waiting for the right opportunity. Think of it as a dry powder. If market drops, this is the cash I would deploy quickly. Next up is international bonds, around $21,000 in total. I split it between government bonds, around $15,000 there, and international bonds, around $6,000 there. This is not huge allocation, and I don't expect eye-popping returns here. The reason I kept it is simple, for diversification. If US market go through a rough patch, international bonds don't always move the same way. They are not exciting, but they do add balance. Next up is US bonds. A much bigger slice, about $73,000 total. Here's the split. Around $51,000 in US government bonds and $22,000 in US corporate bonds. This is my stability layer. When stocks are swinging up and down, these bonds don't move as widely. I learned the importance of this the hard way. In 2020, my stock investment dropped like a rock. It was my bond allocation that gave me breathing room. It's not the most exciting part of the portfolio, but when the market gets ugly, this part keeps me sane. Now here's a slice people always get curious about, alternatives. This is about $65,000. The biggest piece is the real estate fund, around $55,000. These are REITs, the real estate investment trust, that gives me exposure to the property markets without actually owning physical rental inside this account. And the rest is spread across energy, commodities, and gold. So why do I hold this? Because alternatives don't move exactly the same way as the stock and bonds. If inflation spikes or oil prices shoot up, this part of the portfolio helps me balance things out. It's not always smooth sailing. Alternatives can be volatile, but I like having this slice because it adds another layer of diversification. Now let's talk growth, international stocks. This slice is about $132,000. I split it into two buckets. Developed markets, around $95,000. Think Europe, Japan, Australia. These are stable economies outside the US. And emerging markets, about $37,000. This includes countries like India, Brazil, and China. Now, why do I hold this? Because the world economy is bigger than just the US. If US slows down, other regions might still grow. And long term, I want exposure to those global stories. Developed markets give me stability, while emerging markets give me high risk but also higher potential returns. So together, they make sure I'm not betting my retirement on just one country. And finally, the biggest slice of the retirement portfolio, US stocks. This is just over $201,000. And here is how it breaks down. Large cap stocks, around $111,000. These are giants like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, the companies that dominate the economy. Second one is mid-cap, roughly around $54,000. These are the challengers, the companies that could become the next giants. And third is small-cap stocks, now about $36,000. These are the underdogs, the high-risk and high-reward play. But these are important for the diversification. So this is pretty much the engine of my portfolio. When the market grows, this is what pushes the account higher. It is also the piece that carried me through most of my wealth-building years. If you think of portfolio as a meal, this is the main dish and everything else is the side. So after all those slices, what does it add up to? The grand total of my retirement portfolio is now $501,000. That's $500,000. Now here is the real question. If I were 59 and a half today, the age you can withdraw from the retirement account without any penalty, could I actually retire on this portfolio? And more specifically, could I live only on the dividends? Let's create a portfolio and put it to test. Of course, none of this is a financial advice. It is just for education and fun. All right. In this new portfolio, I would allocate 30% to the blue chip dividend ETFs. When you're building dividend income, the foundation starts with reliable blue chip companies that have paid and raised dividends for decades. Now, you could handpick 5 to 10 of these individual stocks, or if you want to keep things simple, you could use ETFs that have already packaged them together. And one of the most popular choice here is SASD, the Schwab's US Dividend Equity ETF. It has been around since 2011. It pays a yield of 3.8% and its 10-year annual return is over 11%. And the expense ratio is just 0.06%. which is about as low as it gets. That balance of solid yield, strong long-term performance, and low cost is why so many dividend investors love SCHD. If I put 30% of this 500,000 portfolio, about $150,000, into a fund like SCHD at roughly 3.8% yield, that would generate about $5,700 per year in just the dividends. SCHD is often the favorite here, but others like VYM or HDV are also popular depending on whether you want broader coverage or a more conservative tilt. This part of the portfolio is not meant to be flashy. It is steady and predictable income, and that's the whole point of having a foundation like this. Now, the foundation is nice and steady, but if you actually want meaningful cash flow, you need something that pays a little more. That's where the high yield dividend stocks and REITs come in. REITs are real estate investment trust that gives you exposure to real estate income without having to be a landlord. They're legally required to pay you most of their profits as dividends, which means higher yields. Some well-known options in this space are VNQ for broad real estate exposure, or individual names like the Realty Income or WPC. If I put $75,000, about 15% of the portfolio, into the mix of REITs, I could expect somewhere between 5 to 6% yield on average. Let's consider 5.5% here. That would generate around $4,120 per year in dividends. Not as high as the riskiest stuff, but stable enough to rely on. Now, this category comes with more risk. REITs can swing when interest rates rise or fall, but paired with that steady blue chip base, it's a way to boost overall income. Now let's talk about income boosters, covered call ETFs. These funds own index or assets like S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, or even Bitcoin, and then they sell covered calls on it to generate options premium. The result is much higher cash flow, but at the cost of giving some upside growth. Here is how I would break it down in this model. I would put 20% in XYLD. This fund writes covered calls on the S&P 500. That's $100,000. And with a yield around 12%, it generates $12,000 per year in dividends. I would put 15% in QQQY. This one writes covered calls on Nasdaq 100, and on $75,000 with a yield around 14.5%, it would generate $10,875 per year. And I would put 15% in BTCI. This is the riskiest slice tied to Bitcoin, and on $75,000 with a yield around 28%, it could generate $21,000 per year in dividends. Now, why even consider a Bitcoin income ETF? Because Bitcoin has been getting more mainstream acceptance. The US already holds strategic Bitcoin reserve. Giants like BlackRock, Fidelity have launched the Bitcoin ETFs, and even more US states are starting to add it to their treasuries. So while it is extremely volatile, there are real legs to this product, and that's why funds like BTCI exist. Add all these covered calls up, and just from these three positions, you're looking at around $43,875 per year in income. Of course, each of these has its own flavor of risk. XYLD moves with the S&P 500, QQQI with the Nasdaq 100, and BTCI with Bitcoin. That simply means payout can rise and fall with the market. It's not a deal breaker. It just means that you choose how much of this income style fits your comfort level. And that's the beauty of building a dividend strategy. You can dial the risk up or down depending on what your need is. Now, even though this whole strategy is about dividends, I still want a small slice set aside for pure growth. That 5% of the portfolio, about $25,000, I would invest it in something like S&P 500, like VOO or SPY, or even tech ETF like QQQN. And you'll ask why? Why bother with the growth when dividends are paying the bills? Because these growth funds don't cap your upside. They reinvest in innovation, they compound quietly in the background, and they help protect your portfolio against inflation over the long term. This is the part of the portfolio that keeps the engine running in the decades ahead. So let's put it all together. SCHD, we invested $150,000 at 3.8% interest. That will give us $5,700 per year. REITs, we invested $75,000 at 5.5% interest. That will give us $4,100 per year. XYLD at $100,000 at 12% yield, we will get $12,000 per year. QQQI with 14.5% yield, we will get $10,875 per year. BTCI, we invested $75,000 at 28% yield. That will give us around $21,000 per year. And the growth slice of 5%, $25,000 in the S&P 500. This one is not about income. It is about long-term growth. Add it all up, and this $500,000 portfolio could generate $53,675 per year in dividends. That's about $4,470 per month in passive income without selling a single share. Of course, the payout move with the markets. Some years it will be higher, some years it will be lower. But even with that, this model shows that a $500,000 portfolio can throw off a retirement level income if you structure it right. Click here to see how I built $1 million portfolio right here. Your finance friend Sushant, signing off.